Hello, guys. Welcome to another podcast. I am joined by Cam, obviously, as you may know, and a special guest I would like to welcome on, Jeremy. Thank you for coming, for taking time out of your day to spend with us to talk about French football. So, Jeremy, thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
So, yeah, we might as well get into it. I know, Cam, you have some questions to ask, and where else to start than French football, one you know so well. So Cam, you take it
Evening, Jeremy.
Hi.
So obviously both me and Dan both Arsenal fans, and we obviously see the links with Houssem Aouar. So we thought try and get some in-depth detail. What do you know about Houssem Aouar as a player? Just to start off with that.
So he's a really talented player. He's already sort of been on the scene for a good sort of 3-4 years now. He's still quite young. I think he's 23. He's now a full France international. I think he's got one cap, but he's sort of been on the fringes of the squad for a while. And he's a really good attacking midfielder, sort of just classic kind of linking the play between defense and attack, can do a little bit of tackling, but it's not his strong point. Can play either he's quite versatile, can play in the center or sort of coming in off the left. Got a decent shot and an assist on him as well. Really good footballer in sort of tight spaces. He can basically pretty much do it all. The problem is that it's not his attitude, but he often sort of blows hot and cold. So at his best, he looks like he could be one of the best midfielders in Europe, but he only sort of plays like that maybe once a month. And the rest of the time he goes a little bit missing. And you sort of want him to, considering how talented he is, you want him to sort of take control of matches. And he rarely does that. He usually sort of just follows the way the match is going. So if Lyon are playing badly, he'll play badly, and vice versa. Like, if Lyon are playing well, he'll play well. Where you kind of want him to, if Lyon are playing badly, you want him to step up and play well and get the rest of the team playing at his level rather than him dropping to the level of the others. So that's my main concern for him.
Would you say the performance from last season was based on the fact he didn't get his move? He was kind of more disheartened, or was it just on he had that big gap from the COVID, just coming back, he couldn't get back to that level he had when they went on that Champions League run?
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it might be a tiny factor, but as you said, I think he had COVID, he had a couple of niggling injuries as well. But really, he was like that last year as well. I know that there was sort of a lot of fuss about, he was brilliant in the final eight in that late Champions League run. So I think people sort of saw that and assumed that's how his whole season has been. But frankly, it wasn't. Last season as well was similar in that he was often occasionally playing well and then often going a bit missing. So this season just passed, he just carried on what he'd been doing the season before. So I think it's almost letting him off lightly to say that it's because the transfer didn't happen last summer.
Would you say maybe a new environment coming to the Premier League with the intensity may take him up to a new level? Yeah.
It might do, but the problem is it could go the other way because there's sort of more pressure on him, more expectation. It's not harder physically, but it's much quicker paced. So I think it would be even more obvious if he wasn't sort of playing at his best. And occasionally, I'm not saying that is the case, but occasionally it looks like he's not bothered. I think he's a bit of an Ozil character like that, in that just his sort of body language and even the way he plays. When he's playing well, it all looks effortless. But when he's not playing well, it looks like he's not putting in any effort. And I'm not saying that he isn't. I'm sure he is, but it just sort of comes across that way. And so that's my concern. I think moving to England, it could be the making of him, but it could go very much the other way as well.
Would you say it wasn't a surprise he didn't make the Euro squad then?
Yeah, not a surprise. For me, not a surprise at all.
I saw him in the under-21 game. He had that kind of attitude as well that you were describing when they played.
Yeah, I mean, the French under-21s are a complete mess. You look at how talented they are, and they should be doing really well, and they always underachieve. But again, it's sort of cause and effect. Are they underachieving, or is he not playing well because the team underachieves, or is the team underachieving because players like him aren't stepping up?
So hopefully if he comes, maybe that may give him that boost to kind of step up. But I think Arteta may convince him to maybe. It's a new environment.
Where do you see him playing in Arteta's system? Because some people say he's better on the left, some people say he's better as an 8. What would you describe him as his best position?
I'd describe him as an 8. I think he's good either in the centre of midfield, but like I said, not with sort of huge kind of tackling or defensive duties. So I'd describe him as an attacking midfielder, but he's not like a number 10 or anything. So either as an 8 or, if you're playing a 4-3-3, I would put him maybe on the left-hand side of the 3, or if it's a diamond, maybe on the left hand of the diamond, even though he can play on the tip as well. But yeah, for me, he's very much a number 8. He's all about, one touch, maybe a quick turn of pace and a shoulder drop to get past a player or two and then offload. So, all about transitions and linking, I think. But like I said, he has got an eye for a final pass and a shot as well.
Can we talk about another under-21 player, Eduardo Camerovinga?
Yeah, sure.
I think we've all seen he's in his last year contract, and a lot of host of clubs have been linked with him. What's the feeling in France about, is he staying, going, or where do you really kind of see his ceiling? Where do you think he can get all the way to the top?
I don't think he'll stay at Rennes unless they can get a deal where they can loan him back for the season, which might be a possibility. But there's a chance he'll stay this season, but then Rennes would possibly lose out on a lot of money because I think his ceiling is massive, like really high. He didn't have a great season last year, but he's 18 and everything came so quickly, sort of from springing onto the scene from 16, man of the match against PSG, playing in Europe, playing France under-21s, and almost immediately going into the senior squad, scoring on his first start. So it all happened so quickly and then with Rennes last year, they were a bit unsettled, change of manager, or the manager was sacked during the season. So you can understand why he didn't maintain the same levels as before, but he's such a talented player that I'm sure he'll come good again. There's obviously lots of rumours, mainly Real Madrid, Man United have also been linked, Chelsea, Arsenal. The rumours from France are that he'd quite like to stay in France, and so probably PSG would be the obvious stepping stone. And I think they could probably do with a player like him as well. So I think that would be the move that would make the most sense to everyone. But obviously the big European clubs, if they get a chance to convince him, then he's changed his agent recently, and we know that agents are quite good at unsettling their players. So I wouldn't be surprised if he goes abroad, but I think it would be good for his development to kind of do the same sort of thing that Mbappe did and first of all go to a bigger French club. Obviously, he's so young that there's loads of time to think about going abroad still.
And where do you see his best position? Because I know Man United fans say he could play the holding role, maybe next to Pogba, or he plays in a pivot or in a 3.
He's another one who can sort of play anywhere in the midfield. I wouldn't have him as a holding. I think he's proper sort of box-to-box midfielder, or even, I think, with a little bit more practice, if you want, I think he could become a really good attacking midfielder, sort of even going up as far as number 10. But for me, certainly at the moment, he's more box-to-box. But I think he plays his best football. Like at Rennes, he worked really well with Steven and Zonzi, and he'd be the one who'd be holding and giving Camerovinga more freedom to push forward. So if he was to play with Pogba, for example, they'd have to work it out between them, because I don't think either of them are sort of made for just holding. I think both would be frustrated just sitting back. So they'd have to form some kind of understanding between them and work out, if one pushes, the other one's going to have to sit and vice versa.
You got a question, Dan?
No, you asked my question. I was just just checking. I was going to say about under-21. Who would you say, in your opinion, is the best French under-21 player? Would you say Camavinga is the best? In your opinion?
Do you mean out of those two?
Yeah, out of the two you just talked about. Yeah.
Out of those
Awar.
two, I think Camervinga. I think like if you got the best out of our every single week, I would possibly say him, but I'm not convinced he can do it. I'm not convinced that, to be honest, I'm certainly not convinced Arteta's the man to get the best out of him week in, week out. But I just think it's in his head that it's not quite right. Whereas Camavinga, I think he's already shown a lot more character, even at 18, than Awar has shown at 23. So, yeah, for me, I think Camavinga's a safer investment.
Would you say that is it Kakare at Lyon would have been a better option at Arsenal signing him over Awar if he was available?
I prefer him. I mean, they're different. They're slightly different kinds of players. I think Awar is sort of more skillful and he's more attacking minded, but Kakare, I love his personality. I love his sort of character. That he's going to throw himself into tackles. I mean, a good footballer, good passing and everything as well. But I think arguably, although he's sort of quite small, so he'd have to get used to the physical side of the Premier League. I think maybe he would. I certainly think he'd be more popular with fans than Awar would be. And yeah, I think maybe he's the kind of player that Arsenal would need more.
Because I know Lyon have quite a conveyor belt of young talent. Who would you say is someone to look out for, maybe going into next season out of France, that could be attracting a lot of international interest?
So I would say maybe Amine Gouiri. So he actually was at Lyon, but moved to Nice last year, and he had a good first season at Nice. He was in the under-21s, and I think he'll be looking to kick on. To be honest, I know there's a lot of fuss about, how great France's attacking lineup is, but in terms of proper centre forwards, they don't have that much choice. I mean, Benzema is aging, and for me, he sort of ruined the balance of the French team. Giroud obviously is older, and I wouldn't be surprised if he retires from international football now. And there aren't many obvious centre forwards to replace them. So I think Gouiri, if he can sort of have a really good season where he sort of progresses from what he did at Nice last year, I think he could make that centre forward spot his own. So I think he's one to look out for.
Talk about Nice. William Saliba, how did he get on at Nice last season?
He got on brilliantly, as he did at Saint-Etienne and as he would have done at Arsenal if he was given a chance. I think he's fantastic. I don't understand what Arteta's problem is with him. I think he's such a good defender. I think he's a good leader considering he's so young. I really think he can do everything, and I don't understand why he hasn't been given a chance.
Don't you think it's like the speed of the Premier League that might change his decision? And especially with the fact that, Arsenal signed Gabriel, which I was going to ask you about. Gabriel in France, how was he? How well did he play? Don't you think he didn't want to put an inexperienced two centre-backs that haven't played like at least a full season in the Premier League as his main centre-back choices? He didn't want them for a consistent season. Maybe that's why he decided to keep one and send the other one on loan. Considering the fact that Saliba's a lot.
Maybe, but at least keep him, at least give him chances, at least play him in the cups or something. Like speed-wise, he's not slow. I just think people keep saying, but he's not proven in the Premier League, but he can't be proven unless he's given chances. So, Gabriel. It's funny that Gabriel was brilliant at Lille, and every summer Lille sell a few players and everyone says, well, how are they going to manage without them? They brought in Sven Botman, who was better than Gabriel, it turned out, and won the league. So although he was great for Lille, that he wasn't actually missed after all.
What would you say to the argument that there's not many teams in world football that have a centre-back pairing under the age of 24 if we had Saliba and Gabriel starting next season?
I get it, but, where did you finish last year? Was it 9th, 8th, 9th?
8th. Yeah.
So if you're going to finish outside of Europe anyway, why not give a couple of kids a bit more experience?
Yeah, because that was my argument at the end of the day.
Would you say Saliba's a confident guy? Because, maybe some defenders, make one mistake might affect their confidence. Look at Mustafi, how he went on that brilliant run, and one mistake basically shook his confidence. We haven't seen the same Mustafi. Do you feel Saliba's that type of guy, or is he strong mentally, or what is he like? Because all I hear in France is like he's the Rolls Royce of centre backs. You get the rough, and you get the diamond, and the diamond is Saliba. What type of centre back is he? What is his mentality?
Obviously he is relatively inexperienced, but everything he's done so far, he's shown like huge character. And he broke. Saint-Etienne had a very good youth team, and they won the Coupe Gambardella, which is sort of the sort of well-known French youth cup. But he'd already moved into the first team squad sort of halfway through the season, so he didn't actually play in it. And they won the final, and then he was kind of, after the match, he sort of said to the senior players, "Come on, let's go and let's go and repeat what the kids did." And they were all laughing at him because he was one of the kids, but he's already thinking of himself in terms of a senior professional. And you look at like Wesley Fofana, who's done so well at Leicester. He's actually older than Saliba, but Saliba was always considered sort of in a way the more senior partner of the two. So he's always shown that leadership and the confidence to came into the first team very young, but immediately was unfazed. And, of course, all players are going to make mistakes, but he's never done anything to sort of suggest that if he makes one, then he's going to go into his shell and his form will plummet or anything like that.
Do you feel he needs that experienced head next to him? Because I know at Saint-Etienne he had Perrin, the captain, and Nice had like an older partner. But I guess at Arsenal, if David Luiz was there, that would have been the perfect for him. Do you think he does need that, or you feel he doesn't need that older guy to hold his hand?
I think at Saint-Etienne with Perrin, I think they sort of helped each other, because although I'm sure it helped him to have someone like Perrin next to him, and Villa kind of said, when in his first match, whatever happens, if you're under pressure, give me the ball. It doesn't matter if I've got 3 players around me, give me the ball and I'll help you out. So I think it helps to have those senior players around. But Perrin's form improved a lot as soon as Saliba came in as well. So it sort of worked both ways. And at Nice as well, Saliba came in, everyone else around him was older. And as soon as he came in, the defence improved. And Todibo sort of came in at around the same time, and they improved the defence together. But it's not like Todibo is a senior player either. So I don't think he necessarily needs someone senior next to him.
So if we know he's going to Marseille, do you see him having another good season and maybe come back to Arsenal the following year? Or would you kind of see this going with him?
I'd like to think so. I think he'll have a good season at Marseille. Obviously, the thing there is that the fans are extremely demanding, but they've had a really good summer so far. I think that as long as the expectations aren't too high, I think they'll have a decent season. They're in Europe, so he'll get hopefully some European experience as well. And then I'd like to think that Arsenal will finally give him a chance. But to be honest, if I was him, I'd be tempted to say, you know what, sod you. I've waited around 3 years. You're obviously you don't care about me that much. If I get a good offer elsewhere, I'll go somewhere else. So, if he has a good season, it might be Arsenal having to grovel to him rather than him begging to be given a chance.
I hope we give him a chance, man. Especially because I'm literally hoping the fact that he stays just because I know he's an Arsenal fan. He's been seeing those pictures of him in an Arsenal shirt. Maybe that's probably the reason why he hasn't left as he probably, if it's any other team, he probably would have. I'm guessing, from what we read in England, it's actually that Arsenal wanted Saliba to go to a Premier League club, but Saliba preferred a French club because they wanted Saliba to have Premier League experience. Which for me, if that was the case, then I can understand it. But if you're saying it's true and we're just not giving him a chance, then that's Arsenal's fault. I feel like we should give him a chance. Clearly, he's proved his worth multiple times that he's good enough to, if in fact, be the best centre-back pairing we have at this club. And the only other reason I can see why he's not playing is probably because they don't want Gabriel and Saliba playing together, two inexperienced centre-backs. But I feel like they would complement each other anyway, because you have Gabriel, who's a 1v1 dual beast. He's physically competitive, and you have Saliba, the more calm, relaxed centre back. That will be who's, as you said, already thinks with a senior mind. So it would be like helping Gabriel for someone at a young age. He has that maturity, when not to go, and he has the calmness.
Yeah, I think, I know Gabriel is young, but he's got a lot of games under his belt now already. He's already sort of played in three, I think, four now different countries. So he's got that sort of life experience as well, which I think helps. So I don't think it should just be based on age. I do think maybe if Saliba was seriously thinking about Premier League, maybe he should have thought about going on a loan move somewhere else in England. And to be honest, as a Brighton fan, if you're going to get Ben White, I'd have happily had Saliba on loan for this season. But I guess, if he's going to Marseille, it's a different kind of experience, but certainly in terms of fan expectations and, like I said, being able to play in Europe as well, maybe challenging for a title or at least for European places rather than going somewhere mid-table in the Premier League. I can understand why he'd want to do that. And to be honest, spending a year living in Marseille isn't such a bad thing anyway.
Do you think he could have handled the big pressures at Arsenal? Because I know maybe some fans feel let's take about Fofana. If he made an error at Leicester, it would kind of be brushed under the carpet. But if Saliba kind of made, let's say, a bad tackle, got himself sent off at Arsenal, it would be blown up, and if he could handle that.
The thing is, you don't know unless you give him a chance. So he's a professional footballer. I'd hope that if he made a mistake, and even if the fans got on his back, he'd sort of be able to rise above it, and I think he would. There's been, to be fair, enough other Arsenal players that have sort of shied away, and even going back as far as someone like William Gallas sort of having a temper tantrum sitting in the middle of the centre circle, and David Luiz and some of the ridiculous mistakes he's made. Can Saliba really do any worse than that? I don't know. I just think give him a chance, let him show his ability, let him show his character. If it doesn't work out, then everyone can hold their hands up. But you spent 27 million on him, and 3 years later he still hasn't played. It makes no sense to me.
I think he should have been given a chance at pre-season. I know they tried to push Saliba to Crystal Palace. I'm not sure if you would have known this, but they gave him a choice of either Crystal Palace, I think it was Brentford, I can't remember the last team, but the team that they really wanted, Newcastle, that's it. But I know the team they really wanted him to go was Crystal Palace, especially with the manager that's there, Patrick Vieira, which we'll also get onto. With Patrick Vieira, they thought it would be a good idea to send him to a manager who's French, who has managed in the French league, knows about Saliba. But I'm guessing, how Arsenal like to, they put all the clubs that are interested, all the offers that then the player and the agent will discuss which is the best move for them, and they picked one, and Saliba picked on Marseille, so he made his choice. I think ideally it would have been nicer for him to go to Crystal Palace, but we'll have to see.
Do you see Saliba kind of growing into a big top player, or do you think he still needs some more time, in his game, or do you have all the qualities you feel maybe already?
He's got all the qualities, but he's not being allowed to sort of push on. Saint Etienne shows great quality. He did have a season that was sort of affected by injury, but then at Nice he's done a great job, and he's more consistency by being able to play more consistently or more often, and hopefully this season he'll take another step forward by having a full season at Marseille. But I think he's got all the abilities, and it's just a case of improving them all. Things like, and maybe that's a factor. He is tall, but he's not the greatest in the air. He's all right, but nothing special. Maybe that's something he needs to work on. But again, the best way to work on things is to be allowed to play full first-team football as much as possible. I think he can. I think he's got all the ability to become the full French international. And there's a lot of very good French centre-backs around, but there's no reason why he can't be one of those that are sort of in the discussion to become, maybe not in the next couple of years, but certainly looking ahead of that, to become a France regular.
Talking about Leo, what's kind of the reception of Pepe's time at Arsenal? Because obviously he had a great year and then he moved for a lot of money. What's kind of reception back in France about him?
And another question to add on to that: why do you think Pepe's form has not been the same as the one was at Lille? Because at Lille he was tearing it up, it seemed. But why do you think at Arsenal is different?
I mean, it's going to sound like it's easy for me to say this in hindsight, but Pepe had one fantastic season, but sort of relatively one-dimensional, sort of bomb down the right, cut inside, do an Arjen Robben and have a shot with his left. And I just think maybe I think clever defenders can work that out and sort of combat it a bit more. So I think a mixture of that, of players getting to know him, maybe playing better players or having a better opposition against him. But also, to be fair, again, I mean, just from the outside, it looks to me like he's rarely given a consistent run in the first team. He'll have a good game and then he'll be on the bench again the next match. And I just think someone like that really needs to build up a head of steam. But at Lille, I think everything sort of, the whole team, the way that the team that was around him, it just clicked. It sort of worked for him. They played, they'd often play sort of 4-2-3-1, so he'd be the 3, but there'd be another sort of central striker, maybe kind of taking some defenders away and creating more space for him, whereas I think Arsenal maybe play more of a 4-3-3. I think that there's a lot of factors, but I do think he's a talented player, but I never thought he was an 80 million player. So maybe it should sort of be thought about in those terms, that people expected, a proper sort of world-class star for that kind of money. And I'm not sure he was ever. I think he's a very, very good player. And I think he's shown even at Arsenal at times that he's got a lot of talent, but I'm not sure he's someone that they should have spent that much on to kind of look at him and think he's the one that's going to sort of win us trophies.
I feel like his biggest issue was the consistency, like you said, because I think by the end of the season, I think he started most of the games and he's scoring 2 goals every other game. So I think he does need that consistent run in the team, because the numbers were there, because he played less minutes in both Aubameyang and Lacazette and scored most in both of them, scored more goals than both of them. So I think maybe he needed that kick on. Maybe next season he may get a more consistent run in the team.
I hope so. I think it would be good to see him click, but it just feels he's sort of frustrating, because it's not like he's been terrible for you. It always feels like he's just almost there and about to click, and then it doesn't quite happen.
And it's unfortunate with the players that we have in our position. If you talk about the right, maybe on the left, yes, but if you talk about on the right, where he was originally playing for Lille, you have Saka, who for me, we've all seen, unfortunately, yesterday, he didn't play his best, but we've all seen Saka and how well he performed. So it's kind of hard for him to get into the team when you have players like that who perform consistently, whereas sometimes Pepe can be a little bit hot and cold at times. Similar like Aouar. We talked about earlier, he can blow hot and cold.
Yeah, I think Aouar blows colder than Pepe, but yeah. But I think that the type of player Pepe is, you sort of sometimes expect that from forward players, that it's going to be sort of hit and miss, and they're going to try things and they might not work out. And, especially when you're looking at them to score goals or whatever, it doesn't always happen. Whereas Aouar, I think, as someone in midfield who's linking play, you need him to be on his game a lot more often. And so I think it's a bigger issue when he's not.
Oh, okay. So I thought you would continue to speak.
Sorry.
Another, because we're all things Arsenal, I don't want to just talk about Arsenal. Another topic I want to get onto is Patrick Vieira, a manager who's managing Nice. And I wanted to get your thoughts on him joining Crystal Palace. Do you think it's a good appointment? What is his style? Is he like Pep Guardiola type, possession-based? Is he like Klopp, gegenpress, pressing? Or is he like Jose Mourinho, sit back and counter-attack? What is his style?
I'd say probably, if out of those three, probably closer to Mourinho, in that disappointingly, his football was really defensive and pretty awful to watch most of the time. And it's a shame because obviously he's a sort of big hero in France, and it looked like his career was sort of progressing really well from like Man City reserves to New York, and then it started okay at Nice, but it never, again, it didn't click. And the first season he came in very late, so there's sort of, you could argue, not he came late, but the new owners came in late, so they made a load of really, really late signings, literally like the last day of the window. So you can kind of say, well, he didn't get a chance to have a full pre-season with them, so maybe we can't judge him till next year. And then, although he did just get them into Europe, I think. Then the following year, they had a really good summer. They brought in a lot of good players, and it still wasn't great football. He wasn't getting the team to click. There were rumours of not bust starts, but just that he wasn't getting through to some of the players, that the man management wasn't as good as you'd have hoped. And the fact is, after he got fired, the guy who came in, who's a complete unknown, but reserve, he'd been reserve coach before at Nice, got much better results. So I think maybe it depends whether the players who came in were Vieira's choices or the choices of the sporting directors. It might have been that Vieira would say, well, that they're not my guys, so it was always difficult to work with them. But for someone of his pedigree, you'd have hoped that he'd be able to, and certainly the kind of player he was, that he'd be able to get a much better team spirit and better football going. And frankly, he didn't get either. If you play really bad defensive football, but you're winning every match 1-0, then maybe fans will be a little bit more patient. But the football was bad and the results were bad. So I think maybe Crystal Palace is a good place to bounce back, because it's in the Premier League. He's back in London. It's kind of still a good shop window for him, but it's not right at the top and huge pressure. But you look at, Hodgson's done a very good job there. He's been there a while now. I think they got a huge turnover of players. They've let a hell of a lot of players go. So it's a tough rebuilding job. And so, I don't know, I think it's a risk. I think he's a big name. He's going to attract players. And I think, he'll automatically have a lot of respect from players because of everything he's done in England and for France. But I think he needs to get results very quickly. Otherwise, I think things could go downhill quite quickly for him.
Were you surprised by the appointment?
No, I don't think so. I think he clearly wanted to get back into management quite quickly, and he'd been linked with like Lyon, for example. So I think France or England were always going to be the obvious countries that he would go to for a club coaching role. I thought maybe it could have been France again, but I apart from the fact that as a Brighton fan, I don't like Palace, I think this is a really good move for him. Like I said, it's sort of back in England, back in London, but arguably not sort of a massive pressure role and so limited expectations. So I think it could work well for him.
So obviously we could talk about you being a Brighton fan. Can we start off with maybe the top guy that's being floated around is Ben White? Maybe I heard it could be moving to Arsenal after the Euros.
Done deal should be done deal.
What qualities do you think he can bring to Arsenal, and do you see him growing into a top Premier League defender, because he's still quite relatively young?
Yeah, I think he's potentially brilliant. I think he's really good footballer, as in like can bring the ball forward himself. He's got a good pass on him. Also not great in the air, but strong tackler, good reading of the game, and he's quite versatile because he can play right back if needed, and so defensive midfield. But to be honest, he was our third best centre back this year.
Yeah, this is what Brighton fans have been saying. They would, I think it was Dunk who they said is their best.
Dunk's the best. I think Dunk is like the most consistent. Webster at times was the best. Dunk sort of started the season a little bit slowly, and Webster looked the best. But Dunk is just immense and a great leader, captain as well. Most Brighton fans would say he's the one that should be in the England squad, not Ben White. I think with White, a lot of it is just typical sort of media hype, and because he played under Bielsa, so we've all got to sort of worship at the feet of Bielsa and all that rubbish. So I think it's partly because of that, and definitely sort of because of his age. I think White is the one with the most potential, but I have to say I'm not sure he's any better than Saliba. And if you've already spent 27 million on one, why are you spending 50 million on the other?
I think people could argue it's his
yeah.
versatility. I think people would argue his versatility for an English player to be that versatile. You can play in multiple positions, especially with the news about Bellerin might going. He could even play right back. He can even play defensive midfield. So I think that's partly the reason why they bought him, because he's so versatile.
I think that's the one thing he's got going for him that Saliba hasn't. But apart from that, I'm not sure I can see that much difference for the extra 50 million you're going to spend. I mean, I think he can fill in at right back. I'd still say his strongest positions are either centre back or defensive midfield, but he's definitely versatile.
Would you say the expensive sign of Ben White maybe help us get my dream signing, Yves Bissouma, from you lot for a cheaper price?
No.
For 45 million, to me, that's a steal. I don't know why we ain't going for it. Well, we are interested, but as well as Man City, I don't know why we ain't pushing it. Because I would say, actually, just a question for you. Who would you say is better, Bissouma or Camara from Olympique Marseille?
It's a good question. I'm a bit biased, but Camara, again, like he's one that I'm not sure what his best position is, because he's been played a lot of centre back as well. At the moment, I think it's a similar thing. At the moment, I'd say Bissouma. Camara probably has got more potential, but he's another one who needs to show it at a bigger level, I suppose, a higher level, as Bissouma has done already. I think
we're linked to both. Because I know we're linked to both. I was just wondering which one has the highest potential.
Yeah, potential-wise, I guess maybe Camara, but I just think Bissouma is already doing it. So
do you see him moving
I think
this
that's
summer?
what we need.
Do you see Bissouma moving this summer?
I think it's an interesting summer for Brighton, because we've basically never had like a massive money sale. So, we've now sort of progressed to, we've got a great stadium. We've been in the Premier League for 4 years. We started signing players for big money, but we've never sold anyone for huge money. And obviously that's part of being a Premier League club as well, especially, on the ones that aren't the top ones, and they're going to be more selling than buying. So it's going to be interesting to see who we keep, who we don't, how much we sell them for. And to be honest, if you'd asked me at the start of the summer, I'd have said definitely Bissouma's the one who's going to leave, because we got Caicedo waiting, we got Mode, who's already looked fantastic. We just signed the guy from Salzburg. So I think all of this looked like we were preparing for Bissouma to leave this summer. But I don't know if the club would want to sell, even if it's for huge money. I don't know if they'd want to sell both White and Bissouma in the same summer. Certainly not necessarily to the same club. I don't know. But again, everyone's got their price. So, and Tony Bloom, the chairman, he's a big poker player. He's not going to be fooled by many people. So, yeah, whatever the price is for Bissouma, and it's probably also, as you said, I think 40, 45 is getting him cheap. I think they should be looking at around 50 odd at least as well. So if someone's willing to put that money in, I think we could cope with the loss of Bissouma, as brilliant as he is, better.
You've replaced him. You replaced him, haven't you? Yeah.
Well, we got two or three who could replace him. Whereas White, it's not obvious. We got a lot of young, talented centre backs, but it's not really obvious who would replace him at the back if we're still playing three at the back. Although we got Veltman, who's more experienced and can come in. So, yeah, I think it's been obvious since at least last summer that we've been preparing for Bissouma to leave. So I'd be surprised if he doesn't go this summer. I don't know if the fact that White is going is going to be looked on as a bonus or a reason to actually keep Bissouma after all.
Do you see the little collection?
The plan was to get rid of White this summer.
Do you see the little connection of Gabriel and Pepe maybe convincing Bissouma to come to North London?
Yeah, I think he's another one that looks like he might have shown before that he's an Arsenal fan, and if he's going to leave, then I think definitely it always happens. You got to think that Pepe and Gabriel are going to sort of help persuade him. But again, it depends who else is interested. It depends if he wants to go straight into European football or wait a season and see if you qualify next year. But I think Arsenal, obviously with that little link, obviously with the sort of French language link as well, with I guess the pull of living in London as well. I think it does look like Bissouma would be very happy to go there, but
money talks.
Yeah,
pay the price to get the player.
Exactly.
Another player
I'm literally hoping, the link with Richard Garlick, and because I know he's close with, I've heard stuff about that he's close with people at Brighton. I'm hoping that, he'll kind of negotiate that price to get it lower. But nah, as you said, the Brighton director is very stubborn. So
there's always been links between the clubs for years now, from like even sort of going back to the 80s. So yeah, I'm sure everyone's people are talking.
I kind of see like Brighton is the situation with Liverpool and Southampton. So maybe Tariq Lamptey as well. I'll take him at Arsenal back.
How have you assessed Tariq Lamptey?
Yeah.
How? Because I know you're a Brighton fan.
The thing is, he was superb. He was like arguably our player of the season sort of till December, and then he got injured and he hasn't played since. But he's back in training now, so hopefully he'll start the season. I think with him, it's just a case of sort of managing him because of the kind of player he is, and like really explosive, like sprinting up and down the wing, and he's still sort of a little as in he's very small, but still also sort of growing as a person and as a footballer. I think it's managing his fitness, making sure that we don't sort of rush him and risk a more serious injury that could threaten his career. So I think it did us a favour that he got injured, because they're already like the likes of Arsenal and even Bayern Munich were sort of looking at him. I think maybe if he played the whole season, he might have gone this summer as well. So I think we're probably going to keep him for another year. But if he manages to do what he did for the first half of last year and keep it going all season and keep fit, then I'm sure a lot of clubs will be after him next summer as well.
Where do you see Brighton finishing next season? Because I know you had a very strong end of the season. The Man City game was a phenomenal game to watch, the 3-2.
Yeah.
And I know people were saying that Brighton kind of needed a striker to finish a lot of the chances. I know the Man United game was at the second game of the season. So if Brighton got a striker in, hopefully this summer, do you see them coming to the top half of the table?
I think last season was really frustrating because we played some brilliant football, and I personally think XG's a waste of time. Like, who cares? All that matters is how many goals you've actually scored. But if you look at the XG charts, we were like 5th or 6th in the table. So if we'd come even close to putting away some of our chances, we'd have shot up the table. So yeah, I think if we can maintain that form this year and either bring someone in or, I don't know, get more consistent form out of someone like Mope or keep Welbeck fitter or whatever, then I think we can definitely be pushing for proper mid-table, like 9th to 12th place, something like that. We shouldn't be struggling as much as even last year. Sort of, you look at the table at the end of the season and it looked like we were relatively comfortable in the end, but for a lot of the season we were still worried about relegation until quite late on. And that it should never have come that close. The quality of football that we were playing, as you said, we outplayed United at least once, Chelsea as well, Liverpool won at Anfield, beat Man City. It shows the quality we've got, but we just need to, I was going to say be more consistent. We don't need to be more consistent because the performances have been consistent. We just need to learn how to put the ball in the net, which is obviously easier said than done.
Talking about Brighton a bit more, when the Tottenham sat Mourinho, I felt Graham Potter would have been the perfect person to go into Tottenham because of what he'd done with Brighton, with the style of football, a lot of young play he brought through, and I've kind of felt that he would have been the perfect man, but Brighton slapped a big buyout clause. And what's your impression of Graham Potter being at Brighton? Was it the third year now coming into?
Yeah, this will be his third year. He's the one that I'm, we can sell White, we can sell Basuma. I don't care. I just want to keep Potter. I think what he's doing is fantastic, and I'm sure the bosses, they clearly had Potter lined up when they sacked Houghton anyway. So I'm sure they already know who they got their eye on next, just in case. But I'm really worried about him leaving. I hate the word project, but it does feel like we're progressing in his project. We're playing good football. He's completely changed the style of football. Like you said, he's bringing through youngsters. I think we gave more minutes to homegrown talent than any other team in the Premier League, which is a massive thing, especially for a club like Brighton. We got, even you look at the number of players, I know it's nothing compared to probably Arsenal or Liverpool City or whatever, but the number of players that we had in Euro squads, that's unheard of for Brighton. We had Sanchez at White for England, Sanchez for Spain, who kind of came out of nowhere and replaced Ryan, Trossard at Belgium, Veltman at Holland. Brighton do not have international players, or didn't for years, let alone players who were in major tournament squads. And so much of that is down to how players are progressing under Potter. So, I'm so pleased that teams like Spurs and Everton are still kind of real snobs about who they want to bring in, and, they want big names from abroad or whatever, because really they should be looking at Potter, and I'm glad they're not.
His style would suit Tottenham perfectly, especially after they tried to go for that big name in Mourinho, didn't work out, and they say they want to play possession style football, yet they've gone to Nuno. He doesn't play that way. He plays the exact same way as Mourinho kind of plays in terms of that counter-attacking football. So I was over the moon, to be honest, when they went to Nuno instead of Graham Potter. And from what we were reading, the fact that he was going to even say no, he said no to their approach, which shocked me because I was thinking, surely he would accept Tottenham, the bigger club, but he looked at it and said, clearly, this is the better project for me. If you look at Tottenham, they're kind of, they're up in the air. We don't know what's going on in terms of their financial situation, and he preferred to stay at Graham Potter. For me, as an Arsenal fan, I'm over the moon. So,
yeah, I mean, I guess maybe also he's thinking, Spurs don't ever want to spend any money, so maybe I'd like to. If I'm going to go to a bigger club, I want it to be somewhere where I can spend a few million or whatever. I don't know, but yeah, and also no one knows what's going on with Kane. Maybe he sort of wanted to know what his team would be if he went there.
So maybe with these Brighton sales this summer, what kind of players would you want Brighton to be signing? Maybe from France, or maybe just realistically for you would want Brighton to sign with, maybe there's a lot of big money coming in.
That's the problem when you say sort of, I don't want to kind of name players, because the fact is that the likes of Brighton, you have to wait and see which bigger clubs are going to bring in which players. And, in terms of a striker, which is the main thing we need, we could do with like a left back, for example. But in terms of a striker, there aren't that many sort of reliable 15, 20 goal a season strikers around. And the ones that are around, they're the most expensive players. And the bigger clubs are going to go in for them first. It looked like we were going to get this Gonzalez from Stuttgart. Now, yeah. And I think he's gone to Fiorentina now. I can understand someone wanting to move to Florence or whatever, but there's even
lower leagues. You can target the Championship. The Championship.
But that's sort of hit and miss. I mean, everyone's saying, why don't we get Ivan Toney from Brentford to replace Mope? Well, remember, Mope was top scorer in the Championship for Brentford as well. He did exactly what Toney did. And then there was Watkins in between. He's done a good job at Villa, but we were priced out. I think we did inquire about him, but we couldn't match Villa's transfer fee and salary. So I think, again, with Bloom, he's going to spend money, but he's not going to just throw it at people just on the off chance. So it's about...
You can get Eddie Nketiah. Eddie Nketiah. He's available.
England 3-1 top goal scorer.
I've seen links, but yeah, again, how reliable is he? I'm not convinced.
He's very one-dimensional, to be honest. He's more finisher. You wouldn't
Poacher.
want him, poacher, you want him in that box. He's very clinical in the box.
To be fair, that is what we need. So maybe.
So maybe like Nketiah and 20 mil for Basuma then.
Yeah, that would be the best. That would be
It's
the best
funny,
deal.
I've seen a lot of Arsenal fans suggest that. I haven't seen many Brighton fans suggest that.
To be fair, if you think about it, the best place for him to go would be Brighton, because he'd be the starting striker. They play brilliant football. In fact, Brighton is like one of my favorite teams to watch because they play nice football. You know, you can't watch Jose Mourinho's football. That's hard to watch. I wouldn't pay my money if I was a neutral to go watch Jose Mourinho because I end up hating football, if you know what I mean. I'd pay my money to go watch Brighton. That's the type of football I like to watch. And Eddie Nketiah will thrive off that because you'll get goals. They generate so many chances, Brighton, at the end of the day. Look at the countless chances I've seen of them missing. If they had a striker like Eddie Nketiah, like, he may be young, but he's a very good finisher. He has a really good eye for goal. I think he will score a lot of goals at Brighton. But I know he's a target for Crystal Palace, who made a bid that got rejected. But I wouldn't be surprised if Brian took him, but I'm not sure for the price.
If we're talking already about White and Bissouma, then I wouldn't be surprised if that, maybe not 20 million in Nketiah, but that could be part of a deal. But I don't know, you're convincing me that he is the kind of player Brighton need, because that's exactly what we miss, just a poacher to put the ball in the net. We're making so many chances, and Mopé isn't yet as clinical as you'd want him to be. Connolly isn't sort of pressurising him in the background. So that was really what we missed last year.
What happened with Matt Ryan at Brighton? Because I know the start of the season he was the number one and he got dropped out of nowhere.
And he seemed fine.
And I'd loved him at Arsenal this season, but I guess he's gone to Spain.
I think his form dipped a bit. So by all accounts, his whatever the goalkeeping equivalent of XG was, he was making some regulation saves, but not all of them, and he wasn't making any sort of unexpected saves. And I think he'd lost the confidence of the defence. So I think that was a factor in it. And then there were sort of reports of a changing room fight between him and Mopé. So I think that was part of it. I don't know. It's a pity because he was really, really popular with the fans, and it's a shame that it sort of went stale so quickly. It was weird how quickly he went from sort of being number one to shipped out to you. But again, you look at what Sanchez did when he came in. He shored up the defence. He looks a more sort of solid, confident character as well, which I think makes the defence feel a bit more reassured about who's behind them. Everything sort of improved once he came in, and like I said, he made the Spain squad, so you can't argue with Potter's call there, even though it was a strange one and a shame that it ended that way.
Moving back to France, Samare signed to Leicester. I know maybe Arsenal fans were saying it should have been him over Basuma we should be targeting. What do you think he could bring to the Premier League?
I think he's had the potential for quite a while now, and I've never really understood for a long time why there are so many English fans. I don't know if it's like a FIFA thing, but there are so many English fans going on about how amazing he is when he wasn't actually showing it yet on the pitch. Like, we knew he had all the potential and all the skills, but he was in and out of the Lille team, partly because of politics, partly because of form. He wasn't always doing that well when he did play. But the last sort of 6 months of this season, he was a crucial part of the Lille team. He was absolutely fantastic. And he's exactly the sort of player that Arsenal have missed since the likes of Vieira and Gilberto Silva, who can basically sort of can bully the opposition. He's great on the ball. He's not attacking minded at all, but he can, break up play, help his defense out, break lines, bring the ball forward, and just intimidate the other team as well. I think it's a shame that you didn't get him, but yeah, I think Leicester have got a really good deal there.
I'm very upset we didn't get Samari, man. What's your opinion about Renato Sanchez? I know there's been links with him to many clubs. Me personally, I know there's been links to Arsenal. Me personally, I don't want him at Arsenal. One, because we have that type of, we have the best like finished version of him in Partey, and two, he seems very one-dimensional. What's your opinion on him, on Renato Sanchez?
He's not my favourite. I think he does everything okay. I just don't think he does anything brilliantly. You get your moments, like for example, the run he went on. I think the goal that he scored in the sort of title clinching win for Lille last year, and obviously, you know, for example, it hurts me to say it, but he was brilliant against France, sort of bullying Pavard in the Euros just now. I don't know about one-dimensional, because I think he's expanded his game at Lille in that he's, you know, often played as a winger and even as a sort of wing back once or twice to help the team out. So I think he's sort of improved his team ethic and consistency a bit. But I think with him, I don't think it's a huge ceiling. I think he, like I said, he does everything okay, but I don't think he does anything spectacularly. And I don't think he's ever going to sort of reach the heights that we thought he would do in 2016 when he had that great Euro.
What do you think about PSG summer? The players that they've already bringing in: Hakimi, Sergio Ramos, Wijnaldum, and maybe Paul Pogba. Do you see them taking back the throne in France and maybe winning the Champions League?
I think they'll win in France again, just because they're the only team that are able to sort of keep up any sort of consistency in terms of their players. Like, I know it hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure Lille will end up selling half their team, for example. Lyon will have a turnover, Marseille bringing in new players. PSG are the only ones that are able to build any kind of legacy year on year because they don't need to sell. Champions League, look, I think, you know, Hakimi, I think one of the big problems for PSG has always been fullbacks. So I think Hakimi is a superb signing. Right back especially is a big issue for them. So I think that's brilliant. Other positions, Donnarumma is probably going to come in this week. We've seen he's a great goalkeeper, but Navas was probably PSG's best player last year, and now he's really unsettled. So great to have Donnarumma because it stops other teams getting him. But now you've got two brilliant number one goalkeepers who are going to be sort of arguably that's not great for team spirit. Same as centre back. I can understand bringing in someone with the experience of Sergio Ramos, but arguably Marquinhos, unless Pochettino is going to go three at the back, arguably Marquinhos and Kimpembe were two of PSG's best players last year. So, you know, is one of them going to be dropped now? So I don't. And Wijnaldum, he's got the experience, and they do need someone other than Verratti to kind of link defense and attack. But I still feel like he's another sort of workhorse midfielder. You know, they got Paredes, they've got Wijnaldum now. My mind's gone blank. I can't remember who. Gabe. They're all Herrera. They're not very exciting, are they? They're all sorts. Yeah, he's got. I guess it is a slight upgrade, but I'm not absolutely convinced that was the best signing. So I think they've started well, but I think they need. I don't think it's thought out. I think it's still very much let's chuck some money at a star name, or you know, let's bring someone in so they don't go somewhere else. I don't think they're thinking in terms of this is going to be how we play, and so these are the kind of players we need. I think it's more, oh look, Sergio Ramos is available, Donnarumma's available, let's bring them in just because we can. And I don't think that's a brilliant way to run your club. And so in terms of Champions League, I think it depends who else comes in, and again, the players have to click. But I'm just
not sure.
I think winning the league is one thing, but I think Champions League, a little bit like international football now, I don't think it's necessarily about the best players. I think it's who can play best as a team. That's why I think Chelsea won it. I don't think they were the best team at all, but the best sort of group of players. But Tuchel managed to get them to play as a unit more often than not. Same with Italy and England. I think they got to the final because they played better as a team. I still think on paper, even Italy, 34 matches unbeaten, I don't think they're anywhere near the best squad on paper in the world. But Mancini has them playing for each other. That's what England did. That's what France did in 2018, but they didn't do it this time, and that's why they suffered. So I just can't see PSG ever winning the Champions League as long as it's all about egos and big names, but who aren't necessarily playing for each other. And obviously, we still don't know what's happening with Mbappe. So
it almost never works.
What's going on with him? Do you think he's just is too comfortable there and he needs that challenge, or because he's not the same player I saw in the World Cup to the Euros. I don't know.
I don't think it's too comfortable, and I don't think he should just be judged on the Euros. He's had a fantastic season, and he's basically carried PSG at times. Scored over 40 goals. I don't buy this too comfortable. I think it's the opposite. I think the reason he wasn't great in the Euros, and even then, like I've criticised his Euro performances as well, but I think 4 of 5 France goals he had a part in. He should have had a penalty. The first match he set up a goal and scored one. Both of them were just offside. Most of the good stuff that France did still come through him. It's just, I think, it's not about it being too easy. I think he's trying too hard. I think he has become too egotistical, and I think he's become obsessed with showing that he's the best player in the world. And so I think he was just being, a lot of the time, I think he was a little bit too selfish. I think he was just trying too much and sort of straining, not relaxing and playing his best game. But in terms of PSG, I think not because it's the French league. I just think maybe it's time for a change. And I also think it would be really good for him to get away from Neymar. I think Neymar's a really bad influence.
Whoa. So I know Liverpool fans are going around. Do you think Liverpool is the best place for him, or Madrid? Real Madrid has also been, he wants to go there.
I would be devastated if he went to Liverpool. I hope he goes to Real Madrid. Not that I like them, I just don't want him to go to Liverpool. But also, I think probably...
Why is that?
Why don't I like them?
No, why don't you want him to go to Liverpool?
I've just never liked Liverpool. Basically. I grew up when I was a kid, because Brighton obviously never got to the Premier League until 4 years ago. When I was a kid, I always followed Everton. So, I've just never liked Liverpool.
So you're happy about Benitez going to Everton then?
I don't feel as strongly as some, but it's not.
The thing is about Benitez, I don't know why Everton are complaining. For me, he's the best. Other than Frank Lampard, who else can you really get?
I think I think it is a good appointment. I think the issue is, there have been players, and I don't know about coaches, but certainly players that have gone from Liverpool to Everton and back. And I don't think there's been too many issues, but I think Benitez made it quite a nasty derby. It was always quite a friendly derby before he got involved, and it's become a lot nastier since he stoked a lot of stuff up. So I think it's not because he's ex-Liverpool. I think it's because he's Benitez. But you know what fans are like. If he gets Everton decent position or whatever, they'll be fine. But I think with Mbappe, I just think I'd like to see him at Real Madrid, like a proper stellar name. As far as I'm concerned, Liverpool they're about Klopp. They're not about being such a great club anymore. I think when Klopp goes, I think they'll suffer, and I think Real Madrid will always be that big name. And he's always sort of wanted to go there, and I think maybe the fact Zidane isn't there is an issue, but I think he'd do great there. I'd like to see it happen.
I think Ancelotti will love him there too, and especially because of the type of manager he is. He's a man manager, so he knows how to get the best out of his players, and he's very laid back. Maybe not good for his ego, but necessarily it won't be like, okay, this manager won't like me. You get what I mean? So
yeah.
What's your thoughts on Tuchel? Because obviously I know he got sacked from Paris and now he's come to England and won the Champions League in 6 months. Do you feel that was the wrong from Paris to sack him quite early? Also, do you feel that he can go up against Klopp and Pep next season if he gets, I don't know, maybe Haaland or gets the right players in to fit his system?
Well, you might feel differently to me, but I don't think it's not a coincidence. But it's interesting that the two managers who won the two European trophies were both supposedly failures at PSG. And I think it tells you everything you need to know about PSG. The coaches have got no chance because there's so much player power. The people above the coach, they're sort of bypassing him constantly. They're always doing whatever the players want. Emery, he came in, he changed the system. The players complained to Al Khalifi, the chief exec, and Emery was ordered to change back again. It's ridiculous. No coach can function like that. And I think Tuchel is a very good coach. I think he's a pretty spiky character. I don't always think he's pleasant, and it's not, PSG isn't the first place where he's clashed with those above him, but he clearly knows what he's doing, and it wasn't a short-term thing because he was there for a good 6 months or whatever. But what he got Chelsea doing in the Champions League was fantastic. And over a season, I think with the players that Chelsea have got, I think they definitely should be challenging for the title. I don't know if Tuchel, because of his style of management, can be a little bit snipey and snippy. I don't know if there'll be times where he falls out with his own players and with the people above him and that kind of thing. But I do think he's a quality coach. I think he showed that last year, and I think PSG were wrong to get rid of him. I don't think he should have taken all the credit for getting PSG to the Champions League final, because I think they got a bit lucky in the draw and with the win against Atalanta. But I also don't think that he should have taken all the flack for them starting last season relatively slowly. And even then, when he was sacked, they were like second or third, and then like a point behind the leaders. So I think it was purely because Leonardo didn't like him, which is ridiculous. And Tuchel now's got a Champions League, and Leonardo is under a lot of pressure.
What do you see Pochettino doing then next season? Because I know he's kind of has that issue with Levy clashing with the owners. Do you think they're going to give him the money? Clearly, we've seen him give him a bit more money to spend, or do you see this not ending very well at PSG?
I think, I know, again, like as an Arsenal fans, you might not agree. I do think he's a quality coach, and I think he's very good working with young players, and PSG have got a brilliant youth policy. You look at some of the fantastic players around Europe, a lot of them came from PSG. The problem is none of them are playing for PSG. They're all getting bored waiting for a chance, and they're all leaving. So if Pochettino is allowed to work with his own players, and he's allowed to bring in some of these younger players, and he's allowed to have his say in who comes in, which signings are made, I think he can do a great job. I'm not convinced, again, that he'll be allowed to have any of that power because of the player power, because of people like Leonardo and Al Khalifi above him who constantly undermine their coaches. And no smoke without fire. I know it's all sort of quietened down, but all those rumours about Pochettino wanting to leave in the summer, I don't think that was completely made up. That's got to come from somewhere, and there's got to be a reason behind it. And it sounds like already him and Leonardo are not getting on brilliantly. So he's got to sort of start the season brilliantly and keep it going all the way through the season. Otherwise, I think either he'll walk away because he'll have had enough of everyone intruding, or Leonardo will get rid. But PSG just can't keep functioning like that. It's ridiculous. At some point, they've got to give a coach the keys to the team and say, we're going to butt out. This is your team. It's your job. Get on with it.
Why do you think he is?
Why? Sorry.
Cam, answer the question. Sorry.
So, do you see Zidane then in the near future going to PSG then?
I don't think so. I mean, I know there is that sort of Qatar connection because he sort of worked for them with like sponsorship and campaigning for the World Cup and stuff. But I think Zidane is so sort of Marseille born and bred that I'd be surprised if he ever went to PSG. And I think it's pretty obvious that he's waiting for the France job. So I think he'll sort of give it at least till the next World Cup and see. I would assume that if not before, the France job will become available after the next World Cup. And to be honest, I'm still not convinced about Zidane as a coach anyway. So
same here. I think I know loads of people say come to Arsenal, come to Arsenal. I'm like, relax. Just because he's a legend doesn't make him a great coach.
Yeah.
You
I
don't win
think
3
at Real
Champions League
Madrid,
in a row, though.
but I think at Real Madrid is the squad. It's the squad though. That squad practically is a big factor of the reason why he won the Champions League. You can't just be saying that maybe the manager, yes, stirred him on, but I personally feel the players he had were too good not to win the Champions League. And you had them at their perfect time. Maybe,
I
yes,
think
it's good man
the best
manager.
thing he did, I think, was win La Liga without Ronaldo and not with a strong squad last season. But then you also had like COVID, and did that help, that kind of thing. So I'm not saying that I don't think he's good. I'm saying I'm just not convinced that he's proven himself. I'm worried that if his next job was the France job, it would sort of go very wrong for him and for France.
Another question I wanted to get into is, well, coming towards the end of the show now, is the Euros. Why did you think the Euros panned out? Were you surprised by the outcome of the Euros? Were you surprised about France's early exit? If not, why? And were you surprised that Italy beat England? Or did you think England were going to ever beat Italy? Or what was your outcome on the Euros? What's your thoughts on it?
I think the best team of the tournament won. I've got no complaints with Italy winning. I think from the start of the tournament, they looked the best. I think they were the better team in the final. I think it doesn't always happen, but I think it was right that they won it. In general, I think I've heard a lot of people say it was a great tournament. I mean, to be completely honest, I didn't particularly think it was. And I think international tournaments generally are suffering because club football, and especially Champions League, have become so important that international football seems to be everyone's kind of second thought. And especially this time, obviously, after COVID, and, you know, a lot of top players barely had a summer because they played Champions League into quite late into the summer. That's a factor with Mbappe. And I know it wasn't just France, but I think there were fitness factors with a lot of the top players. For France, and like I said, I think more and more it's just about who. I think there's always an element of luck in terms of who wins international tournaments. Obviously, looking at stuff like refereeing decisions and penalties and the luck of the draw, but also it just, you know, who happens to click over a 3 or 4 week period. So you can have an Mbappe who scores 40 goals a season, and then all it takes is a bit of bad luck for 3-4 matches, and suddenly you're out of the tournament. Whereas you look at a lot of the sort of top goal scorers over the years in tournaments, they're players who sort of, you know, barely done anything before, barely done anything after, and just happen to have like a magic sort of 3 or 4 weeks in between. So I think that there's a little bit of that. For France, there's so many elements. I think they were affected a little bit by the heat. They were affected by injuries. They didn't just play as a team like they did a couple of years back. But for me, and it's not everyone's opinion, but I think Deschamps, what's been brilliant about Deschamps is generally he's played his own game. He's as a club manager for Marseille as well, and at France, he's like, I'm going to play, you know, I'm pragmatic. I'll do what it takes to win. And it might not always be the most beautiful football, and you might not like it, but it's what I need to do to win. I'm not here to entertain you. I'm here to win trophies. And in 2018, it was based on a fantastic defense and then sort of lightning attacks it was sort of merciless. Like they scored, people said they weren't a good attacking team, and they scored like 11 goals in the knockout stages. But that's because Mbappe was firing and Griezmann was playing superbly, and they could rely on a great defense. And even though he didn't score goals, Giroud was crucial to the attack because he was like the pivot, and Giroud and Griezmann and Mbappe could work off him. I think this time the defense was slightly off. I think Kimpembe is a bit of a liability. Varane wasn't quite at his best. Hernandez is not completely fit, and Pavard just had an absolute nightmare of the tournament. So they didn't have that certainty of the defence. I think the one player who's got away with any criticism, but I actually didn't think was that great in the tournament, was Conte. And then the crucial Pogba was fantastic going forward, but didn't do his defensive shift enough. But for me, although it's controversial, I think Deschamps listened too much to the criticism and decided that he should be more attacking minded. And I think that's why he brought Benzema in. And although Benzema scored 4 goals, I think it completely ruined the balance of the attack. And, you know, Giroud in 2018, Giroud didn't score any goals, but Griezmann and Mbappe scored 4 each. Here, Benzema scored 4, but Griezmann only scored 1 and Mbappe didn't score at all. So that's like a deficit of 3 goals. And I just think Benzema was dropping back, so he was kind of stepping on Griezmann's toes. Mbappe was kind of
isolated.
I don't think he was isolated. I think, again, he was great against Germany because he was playing his game, which is like kind of playing off the last man of the defence and having lots of space behind to run at. In the other matches, the defence sat deeper and he was trying to dribble past them and, as usual, becoming a little bit more selfish and playing like Neymar and trying to do too much himself. But there wasn't, and a lot of the time when someone like, I don't know, one of the fullbacks or Pogba or Griezmann were looking to get the ball into the area, there was no one there. When Giroud's there, you know he's going to be between the posts around the penalty spot. And, you know, if there's no sort of obvious shorter pass to make, then ping the ball into the box. There's a good chance Giroud will get onto the end of it and either have a header or a shot himself or hold it up and then bring others into play. Benzema didn't do that. And I'm not criticising his performances or his attitude, but I think his being there made 2 or 3 other players worse or didn't allow them to be at their best. And I think overall that affected France. But among a lot of people in France, you're never allowed to say anything against Benzema. And so he escaped, not he personally, but the fact that he was there escaped any criticism. And I think it should have been questioned more.
I think because of the campaign basically to get him back in the team. I know for a few years he's been out of it and they've been saying, get him back in that French team, get him back in that French team. And at the end of the day, there's that saying, be careful what you wish for. And by bringing Benzema back, it affected their team because Giroud was the link man, because Giroud was the hold-up play, bringing the defenders inside, which attracted the defenders to come to him, which allowed Mbappe and Griezmann space in behind. And by bringing in Benzema, I think that hindered them, because Benzema doesn't do that per way. So what did you make of England's performance in the Euros?
To be honest, it reminded me a lot of France in 2018 in that it was about the team. The most important, you know, you couldn't really say that any one player stuck out. It was all about the team and about a great team ethic and work ethic and sort of bringing the country along with them by acting well and just having the right sort of it sounds silly to say morals, but it kind of by having good behavior and you know, working for each other, I think you become greater than the sum of your parts. I think the problem is that Italy did that even better than England. But at the same time, I don't think the football was great. I think it was, you know, there were barely any goals. And a lot of the time, and obviously that's what affected them in the final, probably. They shouldn't have sat back once they got that early lead. I think a lot of it was, you know, just keep it tight at the back and settle for your 1 or 2-0 wins, obviously, apart from Ukraine. So it's brilliant, obviously, in that they got to the final, but they had pretty much every advantage that they could have. 6 out of 7 matches at home, no need to travel, no extreme temperatures, a very easy draw. So I'm not saying they should have got to the final, but it did feel like it was maybe the best chance they'd ever get to win the trophy. But generally, I think there's a really good feel-good factor, which hopefully they can feed off. But similar to Zidane and similar to what a lot of French people say about Deschamps, even though he did win the World Cup, I'm just not sure that. I think Southgate is relatively limited. I think he's a great leader of men and he can get them playing as a team. But when you need that little bit extra to win against the other top teams, maybe he's a bit short.
Who's your favourites for the World Cup? next year?
I've got a feeling because football is a bit cyclical, and Italy had their nightmare and didn't qualify for 2018, and now have come back strong. And without knowing enough about the South American teams, obviously Argentina and Brazil both getting to the Copa America final, which is what you'd expect. But if they're still relying on the likes of Neymar and Di Maria Neymar and Messi next year, Messi will be 35 by then. Neymar, I still think, is not very reliable. If I had to put money on someone now, to be completely honest, I'd put it on Germany, because I still think they've got a really quality group of players.
Wow.
I think in the same way as France now, I think they've gone off after having a good period. And I just think Lowe stayed too long as coach. But I think Hansi Flick is a quality coach. And they're Germany. Germany never stay down for long, do they? So I think they're going to bounce back.
Especially with the new manager that's coming, Hansi Flick.
Yeah, exactly.
They're rebuild, but do you think they have the players to rebuild? Like, for example, you look at England, the endless attacking talent. For me personally, I think Southgate was way too defensive in that tournament, and you could see that in the final. Like, almost immediately as soon as you scored the first goal, you saw how the whole team just went defensively minded and ended up. You can't play that system, that defensive system, without it sapping all your energy out. Especially when you've got an Italy team that control possession and can create so many chances like that. So do you feel like they have the players, like the quality players, like the endless amount of talent to rebuild again? Or do you feel
Germany.
like it's
Germany? Yeah, I
Germany.
do. I think for me, the Bundesliga arguably is taking in all factors at the moment. I think it's the best league. If you mix up the quality with the production of youth, with the excitement of the football, I don't care what anyone says. I think Bundesliga football is more exciting than Premier League. I think you get a lot more end-to-end matches week in, week out than you do in the Premier League. And there's some really quality players there. And like I said, I think Germany, I think from memory, they got a half-decent under-21 squad, but they're always bringing players through. And even the first team, on paper, again, I think there's a couple of players who are past their best. Hummels, for example, Müller, arguably, although he had a great season for Bayern. But there's also, personally, I'm not convinced about Werner, but there are some really quality players there. Kimmich's still going to be there. Havertz, I think, is only going to get better. So I do think that they find a way. They always find a way. And with Flick there, I think I just think Löw was, he'd been there far too long, but I think Flick can sort of renew them in the same way that Mancini's done for Italy. And again, like Italy, on paper, I don't think they're the greatest team, but if you've got them playing as a team, I think that's the main thing. In terms of sort of attacking football, I just think it's the same with France. Everyone keeps saying France should be playing amazing attacking football because they've got so many great attacking players. You don't win anything by fielding sort of 6 or 7 attacking players. You've got to have balance, especially in international football. I just think Deschamps sometimes and Southgate in this tournament went a little bit too far defensively. But the fact is, it's a couple of penalties here or there. If England had won it on penalties, everyone would have said Southgate did the right thing to sit back because it worked. It just happened it didn't. So now it's easy to say, well, in hindsight, you should have attacked more. But if they won the penalty shootout and they were sitting with the trophy today, would anyone be saying that? I don't know.
So my final 2 questions. Your favourite player growing up and the ultimate football question, Messi or Ronaldo?
So my favourite player growing up, this is really going to age me, but my favourite player ever is Van Basten. I just think he was a class act as a striker. I think he could do everything, like great in the air, great on the ground, spectacular overhead kicks, one of the best volleyers ever. I absolutely loved him.
He was all round.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I feel like I've got to mention players like Henry and Zidane, who I obviously loved, especially for the French connection. But Van Basten was sort of my first proper hero. And then Messi, Ronaldo, for me, Messi every time. I think
There'll never be a dribbler like him.
I love Ronaldo's sort of dedication to being the best that he can be, but I just find a lot of the way he plays really unpleasant. And I know it's a very controversial thing to say, but for all the sort of hundreds and hundreds of goals that he scored, I find that so often he's so selfish that you could probably chalk off a few hundred goals that the team would have scored if he hadn't shot on sight rather than put it through to the guy who was open. Whereas Messi is very much like, I'll take an assist as well as a goal myself. I think he's a lot more of a team player than Ronaldo is.
So much more like when you're talking about he can dribble, he can assist, he can carry the ball from the halfway line, go on a run. I know it's mad, but we Arsenal fans, us and our crazy comparisons, we see that exact same type of ability in Saka in terms of where he can carry the ball from midfield and just drift and drift. I know maybe not obviously Messi level, because there'll never be a player like Messi again. But in terms of player profile similar of Messi, and they both played preferably on that right-hand side, we tend to compare a lot of Saka to Messi's style of play. So
I think I'm not an Argentina fan or anything, but I'm so pleased they won the Copa America just for Messi. And I think a lot of people think that he deserved that sort of, that continental award.
He cannot
and also
go.
Now all the Ronaldo fans can't say, yeah, well, Ronaldo won the Euros and Messi's never won anything for Argentina.
So it makes the debate more harder now.
Yeah,
I think it makes it easier.
Thierry Henry is an interesting one. I had it on my notes down, but I forgot to ask earlier when we were talking about managers. What happened in Monaco? Why did it go as terrible as it did? And is he seen as going to be a great coach in the future? Because here in England they view Mikel Arteta, for example, as the future coach. I'm not sure if you knew this, but Man City, if Pep Guardiola was to leave, they wanted actually Mikel Arteta to be his replacement. Is Thierry Henry that type of mold? Is he like potentially a great coach? Or who, in your opinion, also do you feel like is a great coach that we should keep an eye out for?
Potter.
I know I have one in Christophe Galtier, but
I think for Henry, I think Henry. They always say that about Glenn Hoddle, that his problem was that the players he had couldn't do all the things that he could do, and he could never really get his head around it. And I think maybe that's the thing with Henry. I think at Monaco, I feel a bit sorry for at Monaco, because I think he came in at a really bad time. So Jardim had sort of really mucked everything up. The club had mucked everything up by buying a load of kids who weren't good enough. He had a few injuries when he came in as well. So I think they got rid of him much too quickly. I think he sort of judged too harshly for what happened at Monaco. The thing is, it didn't really go much better at Montreal either. And I've read like 2 or 3 interviews with him, and he talks a fantastic game, but it feels like there's too much theory, and I'm not convinced he can put it into practice. I think he does. He seems very, very strict. I know, like, when he was growing up, his dad was extremely strict on him and he was quite hard on himself. And that works, but I'm not sure it works, especially with the sort of modern generation of 17-year-olds are already like multimillionaires on these huge contracts and things. And he was sort of in between the two generations in that France team of, the Zidans and Desailly's and Deschamps and Blancs, who it was all very much about respect. And then people like Nasri, and there's a very famous story of Nasri taking Henry's place in the bus in the France coach and refusing to move for him. And I think that was like, in France, that's seen as a really big thing to show the difference in generations and difference in respect. And I think Henry's sort of caught in between as a coach as well. And I think he's trying to be a kind of authoritarian coach, but can't translate it. And the same thing, can't can't get his players to do what he could do very easily. I think it's a real pity because I always had him down as a potential really good coach because he clearly really thinks about the game and understands the game and tactics really well, and I think better than a lot of other players. But for some reason, he can't get it across, and I'm sure he'll give it another go. But again, I'm just not sure. A bit like Vieira, maybe. I'm just not sure he's ever going to make it as a top coach, and maybe sort of doing what he's doing now at Belgium and kind of an attacking coach and sort of mentoring one or two players like Lukaku. I think maybe is a better fit for him than being the sort of main man and having to do the press conferences and be the sort of figurehead for everything. In terms of up and coming coaches, I mean, I wouldn't say Gautier is up and coming, but I think he's really proved himself at Saint-Etienne and Lille, what a great coach he is. Trying to think he's up and coming. The one that everyone was talking about a couple of years ago was Julien Stéphan, who did a great job at Rennes, but then it went a bit wrong last year. He got fired, and he's gone to Strasbourg now, so it'll be interesting to see what he does this season. Trying to think who else is a sort of up-and-coming coach.
There's not many of them because not many clubs give them a chance. It's very rare. That's why with Arsenal, it was a massive shock, to give that big job to inevitably an inexperienced coach. He's never managed at top level. It kind of has to come from recommendation. Like with Arsenal, with Mikel Arteta, they wanted to hire him the year they appointed Emery, but it was kind of Ivan Gazidis who, Cam, we already know about Ivan Gazidis, the way he destroyed the club inside out, financially, in terms of player transfers. He was the one who decided to change the plan and go with Emery instead of Arteta. So I think Arsenal have always viewed Arteta due to not just people outside the game saying how highly he understands the tactical game, how well he is apparently with players, which for me is his one weakness. Because for me with Arteta, I'm not sure about Cam, because I'll allow Cam to explain his opinion on Arteta. With me with Arteta, it's not necessarily his tactics, because he's proven that tactically he's up there with one of the best. You just have to go through his record with the top six against Tuchel, against Pep Guardiola, against Klopp, against Brendan Rodgers. He's been all of them. He's been at least all of them once or twice. I think for me, the problem I have with him is his man management. But I feel like that can develop over time. And in terms of man management, like how to handle players. For example, we talked about earlier Saliba. For me, to keep a player like Saliba, he clearly hasn't managed him right. Another player we got with Pepe, clearly another one, he hasn't managed it right. But I guess the argument with that, you could say he's a young coach and he's still learning his trade, because not all coaches, especially with the man management side, they kind of develop it later on as they get older, because they're now starting to learn how players work and how they behave and how to get the best out of them in terms of talking to them and how to get them inside mentally. But in terms of tactical ability, Mikel Arteta, he's one of the best in the league. He's proving it out there. And it's no secret if you see I know stats don't mean everything, but if the VAR mistakes didn't go against us, if the correct decisions were made, we'd actually be in the top four right now. So the whole scenario would have flipped on his head, which for me, I find that mad. So considering the fact that we had the terrible season we still performed to the point where we should be in the top four if VR had marked us up. Shows me that he's got it. He just needs, one, his players, and two, he just needs to develop the man management skills. So
I like him. I'm pleased you start with him. I remember when there was a point where I thought he would go to Everton and Ancelotti would go to Arsenal. So I think it would have been interesting to see how that would have worked out. But I really like him. The two things I'm disappointed with are that, considering he won the FA Cup, I thought last year he'd kick on, and I'm not sure he did. And then, obviously the Saliba thing. But I still think he's a quality manager, and I think you've got a really good on this. I'm pleased you're sticking with him.
Yeah, Cam, what's your opinion on Arteta? Because I know we have arguments on the chat on him. We are very contradicting.
I don't feel he is the right man for Arsenal. I think it was the wrong appointment. I would have taken someone, Simeone, Allegri, someone with experience, because I think Arsenal, we dropped quite often. Maybe not disrespect to Brighton, but if Brighton or Palace, someone took him who's not experienced, and then learnt his trade, and then got the upgrade. And you can see kind of he's not very good with the consistency, mismanaging players. But like Dan said, if he gets the players in, and maybe Aouar, maybe hopefully Basuma, maybe Ben White, and he gets people who understand his philosophy, maybe it may all click. But
the thing is with Cam, yeah, to put that to you, yeah. So you're saying, say with Allegri and Simeone, what do you identify as an Arsenal philosophy? The possession-based, attacking, Wenger ball football. So are you willing to give that up for the Simeone type football, like in terms of defensive style, sitting back, more defensive?
I wouldn't call Simeone defensive though, because he just won La Liga. So, and he scores quite a lot of goals. I wouldn't say his football's defensive. I think he plays like that to win. And at the end of the day, I think he would have brought in to change the Arsenal philosophy and maybe just bring just a whole new thing to Arsenal. But with Arteta now, and there's little games like maybe the Wolves game, even there's some games you can see he has it, and then there's some games it just falls apart. So I guess if he gets more of his players in, like Xhaka, Bella, and there's a lot of people leaving this summer, maybe he brings in just a younger team, a new team, and maybe it may click.
I like the players we're profiling, we're targeting. Players like Bissouma, for example. If we could get him next to Partey, who Partey has made it very... I'm not sure, I've been speaking to a few people. He said he would like Bissouma as his ideal partner. And it makes perfect sense because Partey and Bissouma complement each other perfectly, in my opinion. They're both very good at what they do in terms of Partey can be the 8 because we've been using him as a 6. I'm just wondering, Jeremy, can Bissouma play as a 6? Would you say that is his best position as a sitter? Or would you say he's more of an 8 or box to box? Like
for me, he's more of an 8. He can play a 6. He's sort of led Brighton for tackles made, and he's always dropping back to take possession from the keeper or the back 4, back 5. So he certainly is happy to play deep. But I think if you've got him just sitting and not giving him the freedom to move forward, then I think you're sort of missing out on a lot of what he does best. But if you were to tell him you're only going to play as a 6, he definitely could do it. It's just a question of whether he wanted to or not, I guess.
Interesting. So would you say Camara could play better as a 6? Because that's where some people would say, let's get Camara instead. Because he's keeper and he can play that 6.
I think I'd definitely say he's more defensive minded than Bissouma.
Anyway, thank you, Jeremy. We've come to the end of our show. Thank you, Jeremy, for coming. Thank you, Cam. Problem. It's been great. It's been great having you two on. Hope to have you, Jeremy, on again.
I
hope Brian.
Help with the Basuma though, if you can.
Yeah.
We could do a bit of a trade, get some of your more players in.
Yeah, and we'll give you Nketiah.
And Ainsley. And Willock scored quite a lot of goals this season.
Well.
Yeah, I did think about Willock, yeah.
We're getting somewhere.
Unfortunately, I don't have much say.
I think Willock would be actually very good
for him anyway.
Yeah, thank you, Jeremy. And thank you guys for watching. And we'll see you guys soon.